Thank you, Mr. Chairman, fellow panelists and friends. Let me, Mr. Chairman, you will excuse me for starting on a personal note, since Professor Piris referred to something at the end of his speech. Let me make it quite plain that I am extremely glad that the Prevention of Terrorism Act, which I have fought all my life to repeal, is not being used in the case where I was to be the target. It's a draconian piece of legislation. It achieves the opposite of what it professes to achieve, and I have personal experience in that. Just to give you one example of a case in which I appeared for an elderly couple who was supposed to have failed to give information to the police about a terrorist. Now that a terrorist, let's call him X, X was also arrested. And this couple was arrested. X did not give a confession despite torture. Hardened terrorist. The elderly couple, the lady was told, you sign this, then you can go home. She signed her own confession. The gentleman was shown ropes and hooks, and he signed his confession of failure to give information about X. When I appeared for them in the Colombo High Court, X also came to watch the court proceedings, a free man. Because he had not signed a confession, he was allowed to go free. He sat in the well of the court watching the proceedings. And here was this couple who had 3 children to look after. 1 year they had been in remand, no bail. And against my own conscience, I pleaded guilty on their instructions, and they were given a suspended sentence. The Prevention of Terrorism Act always ensured that the wrong people got punished because it was easy to extract a confession. No proper investigation was ever done. And what did that mean? That meant that the real culprits actually walked free, endangering the security of the country. The PTA has not been used in any case, as far as I'm aware, beginning from this year. And although I have no say in the matter, I have made it quite plain that I do not want the PTA to be used in this situation, because I want the actual offenders apprehended and a scientific investigation done and presented to court. There were some officers who told me, sir, if you let us use PTA, 3 months in Busa, we can get everything out. I know what happens in 3 months in Busa. Right? So, that said, as Professor Piris began, I wondered whether this was a seminar on corruption. It is not. And so, let's focus on the Constitution, reconciliation, and us. What has reconciliation got to do with the Constitution? I say with respect that it has everything to do with the Constitution. Those of you who heard me yesterday at the Colombo University must forgive me. I might repeat some things that were said there. I say that because the whole national question took a violent turn only with the enactment of the first Republican Constitution. The federal party to which I belong in 1970 election manifesto specifically called on the Tamil people not to vote for any candidate who called for a separation of the country, who called for a separate state. There were some candidates in 70. But by 72, when the first Republican Constitution was enacted through the process of a Constituent Assembly in which basic resolutions were passed with a majority vote, 86 to 14, 83 to 14, 86 to 16, that was the way it was done. Majoritarian, display of majoritarianism in which the representatives of the Tamil people's voice was shut out and they were excluded. Not just excluded from the Constituent Assembly, but from the national life of the country. Why do I say that? I say that because when the 1972 Constitution proclaimed Sinhala as the only official language, first time a constitutional status was given, it excluded everyone else. It relegated, at least relegated others to second class. There was no equal citizenship right to the people, all the people of this country, quite naturally, obviously. And when it for the first time elevated Buddhism to the status of foremost place, there can be only one that can occupy the foremost place, all others came secondary. That's the exclusion. And you talk about reconciliation. Why reconciliation? Because by the enactment of the first Republican Constitution, everyone other than a Sinhalese and a Buddhist was excluded from the national life of this country. Tinkering was done later on, 1987, through the 13th Amendment. Tamil was also made a national official language. That's there in writing in the Constitution. But Article 9 remains. And a unitary state system of government was brought in through the first and the second Republican Constitution, ensuring that it is the majority vote that will always hold sway. It's the majority's decision that will always make the difference. Whenever issues arose between communities, by the fact that one community was a preponderant majority, it will always sway that way. Now, majority rule is a feature of democracy, but that is not all. Democracy does not mean mere counting of heads. And as I say that, I remember what Professor C. Sundarlingam said in Parliament about counting of heads. He told the speaker once, who belonged to the Islamic faith, he said, "Sir, I don't know what you will do if this house passes a resolution saying that you cannot wear your face cap when you come into this chamber. But if this house passes a resolution prohibiting me wearing my holy ash in entering this chamber, they will have my fist on their faces." That is not counting of heads, that is cracking of heads. There are few fundamentals that cannot be taken away from you as a citizen of this country, if you are an equal citizen of this country, by a majority vote. But that's what happened. That's what happened in 1949. And that is when the Tamil leaders, who until then rejected the idea of a federal state, a federal system of government. I have here Professor Pirisa's speeches made in 1997 and 1999, very illuminating ones. Navaratra Raja Memorial lecture that he delivered in 1999, where he talks about what happened in 1925, SWRD Bandaranaike's lecture, promoting a federal structure for this country. And we know what happened subsequently when the Kandyan chiefs asked for federal structure for this country before the Donamo and the Solbury commissions. The Tamils did not ask for that, did not support it. If only they had supported it, we would have had, at the time of independence itself, we would have had a federal arrangement of 3 units. That's what the Kandyan League articulated. We did not have that. It was only after a demonstration of what a majority vote can do, even take the most basic of your rights, that of a citizen, that they woke up. And the Federal Party was born in 1949, 19th of December. And it is the enactment of the first Republican Constitution that excluded the Tamils of this country from national life. So the party that specifically asked the people not to vote for anybody who stood for separation of the country, very soon was to join with other Tamil parties within 6 years and pass a resolution to restore the lost sovereignty for a separate state. Now we have come a long way from that. We have come a long way from that because in the last several years, we have repeatedly got a mandate from the Tamil people to find a solution within one united, undivided country. Despite other formations in the Tamil polity who have clamored and canvassed and told the Tamil people not to trust the Sinhala leaders, that they will never deliver. Yet, even until August 2015, it is the TNA's manifesto which said one united, undivided country. A power sharing arrangement so that this imbalance that is created by a preponderant majority always ruling, always making the decisions, is somewhat redressed. So that at least in the areas in which we are a majority, some of the day-to-day things can be handled, decided by us, rather than it being decided here in the center. And that was Professor Piris's idea as well when he addressed the Federalism Conference in Canada in 1999, October 1999, where he promoted a quasi-federal constitution very clearly, stating that the concurrent list must be abolished and that a commitment to pluralism, I'm quoting Professor Piris, secularism and the functioning of representative democracy can flourish. And in the years 1994 to August 2000, when he spearheaded the campaign for a new constitution, he argued most eloquently that the unitary state must be departed from. And indeed, in all of the drafts, it was departed from. It's a matter of record that after the enactment of the 13th Amendment to the Constitution, there have been several processes which have had substantial consensus, including the Constitution Bill of 2000 that Professor Piris was responsible for, had a consensus. Even the United National Party, which burned it in the chamber, said they objected to it only because of the extension of the executive presidency for the duration of that incumbent's term, not for anything else. Coming to the question, since the time is limited, of a referendum and the present process, let me tell you that we passed a resolution on the 9th of March last year in Parliament. A unanimous resolution. A unanimous resolution. There are 51 members of a group that calls itself joint opposition for whatever the reason, I don't really understand. We are an opposition party. JVP is an opposition party. There is one member of the EPDP who's in the opposition. But some members of the UPFA sitting in the opposition side call themselves joint opposition. In any case, even with them in Parliament, not one of them objected to that resolution, which clearly says that this process that was being embarked upon of the formation of a constitutional assembly, a steering committee, subcommittees, at the end of it, will receive a report and a draft constitution bill. That it is being tasked, this process was being tasked with drafting a constitution for Sri Lanka. And that draft constitution bill will be tested to see if it has 2/3 support, first in the Constitutional Assembly, and if it passes that it must go to the Cabinet of Ministers, be certified as a repeal and replacement of the Constitution, come back to Parliament, pass with the 2/3 majority, and be presented to the people for approval at a referendum. That is the resolution that was passed unanimously by this Parliament. President Mathiaparanan Sirisena, when he announced his candidature, in November 2014, at the press conference, when he announced his candidature, when he said, I am the common opposition candidate, he gave 3 promises to the country. The first of which was that he will abolish executive presidency. Not only did he say that at the funeral of Venerable Sovithuthera, the very first promise was to abolish executive presidency. And on the 9th of January 2015, 9th of January 2016, when the resolution was presented to Parliament, he made a speech. He very clearly articulated his position. Last November, he made a speech. Last December, he made a speech. During the budget, he made 2 speeches in Parliament. In both, very clearly articulated the position that the new constitution must have the approval of the people at a referendum. Let me say this, which I said just a little while ago, a few hours ago, at the steering committee. The present process is not one of government proposing something so that somebody can knock it down. No. It is not something where the DNA proposes put forward another proposal. No. It's a process where all of us have sat down together. Today was the 50th meeting of the steering committee. All have sat down together and are making decisions. 6 subcommittees have come up with their reports. Steering committee was tasked with coming up with their proposal on 6 matters, 6 other matters. There is a draft available. The SLFP ministers were not with President Mathiaparanan Sirisena at the presidential election. They opposed him. Despite their opposition, he was elected by the people of this country. The fact that I'm concluding, the fact that they are now with him and ministers cannot take away the fact that he was given a mandate by the people. And when the 19th Amendment was passed in Parliament, Professor Piris referred to that, and I can see the only member who voted against the 19th Amendment in the audience. I respect him for that, for standing up for what he thought was right. Everybody else voted for. At the committee stage, it was repeatedly said, this is only a stopgap. We will have a new constitution through a national government after the general election. One examines the Hansard, you can find it at least 10 times, by the Prime Minister and the Minister of Justice who led the process through the committee stage, saying we will have a new constitution after the election. So, that process is on. And as far as we are concerned, reconciliation is important and we want reconciliation. And we don't want reconciliation behind the backs of the Sinhala people. We want the Sinhala people of this country to approve substantive changes in the constitution. If people are saying, oh, we don't know whether we are going to win the referendum, what are they saying? They are saying, let's smuggle something through behind the backs of the people. We don't want that. We want a process that is transparent, that is clear, people to know what it is and accept it. That is the constitution that will last. That is the constitution that will achieve reconciliation in this country. Thank you.
We think of time as a one-way motion. From the past to the present and on to the future. But the future is always a result of what has happened in the past. What we decide today will impact our future beyond our lifetime. What is the future we wish to create? What is the legacy we wish to leave behind? Can we be the change we wish to see? Let us chat with the future today. Be the smart change.